Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Business Barbershop Podcast. I am Chris,
I am Keen.
and today we're going to talk about tax strategy.
Our
So,
tax strategy.
our tax strategy. So, it should be fun. And I'm just working on the view here to see what's going on, what's happening.
The reason why I say our
And,
tax strategy is because I'm not a CPA or tax attorney. So you need to seek your own
oh,
legal advice.
well, I am. I am both I'm not a CPA, but I am a tax attorney. But
Yeah.
still, don't do anything without going and checking with somebody else first. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Just be smart. Okay. Use your brains. There we go. Let's go side to side. Okay. Don't know how this will look, but that's fine. All right. Um, okay, so let's maybe oh, we want this one, I think. Yeah. Let's start by maybe updating everybody on project status. So one of the reasons we want to talk about this, I guess, is you and I and a couple other people are doing a real estate deal. We basically bought sort of a fourplex. Not I don't
Hmm.
know if it's apartment complex. I don't know.
Yep.
We're gonna condo it, and so we're gonna each own the individual units. All of us, I think, are planning on Airbnb them,
Yep.
short at least in the short term, and we want to talk about how we can essentially convert the depreciation on two things really. One, how can we accelerate the depreciation on these units to improve our tax standing in 2026? And I think going along with that is also going to be how can we convert this depreciation and technically the income, although the income will be offset by the depreciation, from a passive sort of income stream and depreciation deduction into an active income stream and depreciation deduction, which means the depreciation that you calculate, you can reduce your like W-2 income from that depreciation if you make it active.
Yep.
So where would you like to start?
Yeah. So I've actually heard lots of podcasts and articles covering this topic. And I think they've all done decent jobs of doing it. But I think there's an advantage. And again, this is not your tax advice, right? But there's an advantage listening to an investor who has helped other investors business plan building up their portfolio and watching them have the same conversations with tax people and finding the common successes. The problem when you talk to a tax professional, this is just true for many things. When you're a professional servicing it, but you're not actively doing it a ton yourself, then you do give good advice, but you also sometimes feel a lot of noise that can sometimes be confusing
Yeah.
because you don't know really how to design the entire plan. You just know how to take someone's existing plan and try to twist it to make it work. And so you throw out ideas with your knowledge to make it work, but there's not like this A to Z comprehensive big picture. If you just do this, you'll have success.
Right. I think
It's
also to piggyback on that real quick, I think it's much, much easier to employ this type of strategy and pretty much all other tax strategies if you decide you're going to do it before you do the thing,
right.
right? Because
Yep.
it's really a checklist of things that you need to do to be able to qualify for these strategies to work for you, whether it's a short-term rental strategy, whether it's a oil and gas strategy, whether it's, I don't know, just a business deduction strategy, like whatever you're doing, Augusta rule, all these different things, even
Yep.
IRA contributions, you just have to know what you're doing beforehand and then follow the steps to do it.
And there's so much information that sometimes portions of it may or may not apply to different
Correct.
people. And so when you take in information that doesn't applicable to you, it can actually like kind of foggy up the plan. So I'm going to tell you the criteria
Yes, because
of
well, I'll also say this because the way that you're going to do it and the way that I'm going to do it are going to be different,
right,
right? So
right.
it's important to know. Yeah.
Right, but there's similarities to our profile. So I at least want to start with this advice or this conversation is really for a certain kind of profile. So I'm going to say the minimum active income investor we should be talking about in this category is someone who makes an active income of about 300,000 a year or more. The reason why I say that is because the minute it gets less than that, some of these things that we're saying may not even apply. For instance, passive losses can be used to offset active income for incomes that are less than 125,000. So then all this crazy stuff about how to become real estate, none of it would apply if you just make less than 125. And it's harder to buy a lot of real estate in our area when you only make up to 125. So like let's just this whole conversation is really kind of just driven for a household income of about 250 or 300 minimum or higher. Okay. And that once
Yeah,
that
I would also say, by the way, if you're going to actively get into the real estate game, because someone might be watching this video from not Seattle, you know,
right.
if you are going to be, if you have in your like your goals to own like multiple short-term rentals, you should know how to do this,
Yeah.
because even if you don't use all of the accelerated depreciation in year one, you carry it forward and you can sort of have zero income tax years for several years in a row. You know,
Yep.
even if you make 200K, you could have no tax state, which is kind of cool. So,
Right.
you know, you're right. You need to be, you know, you need to make enough money to be able to buy some real estate and employ these strategies. And also and I always tell this to everybody too, it's also important to remember that a zero tax status is not usually the ultimate goal, because you're going to have to outlay some money to buy this real estate. For example, you're going to have to outlay money to you know, put the furniture in and do all these other things. You're going to have to spend some money to get these tax savings. Make sure that the investment is part of your plan and not just a way to reduce taxes. In real quick example, and then we'll dive in. A lot of people I talk to will say, "Hey, you know, should I just go buy a car that's over 6,000 pounds so I can depreciate the whole thing this year?" And my question is, do you need a car?
Yeah.
Because if you don't need a car, you know, don't go buy a car. I don't know, right? I mean, it's like you have to
Yeah.
still like you don't have to
It's a
pay the whole
depreciating, yeah, it's a
you don't have to
depreciating
pay the whole
asset as
60. Let's
expenses.
say it's 60K for the car. You don't have to pay the whole 60K this year, but you got to get a loan. You're going to pay interest on it. You're going to put some money down, and you're going to have this liability hanging over your head that you're going to have to pay for eventually. You know,
Hmm.
so and if you think, oh, I'm just going to sell the car after year one, same with this. I'm just going to sell the house after year one. It doesn't really work like that, because they do this thing called depreciation recapture where they make you pay it back.
Yep.
Okay. So this is a great strategy that we're going to talk about. It's super fun. And it can be big depending on, you know, the type of real estate that you have. But don't sort of like put the cart before the horse. If you're going to get into the real estate sort of game or investing, and that's seems fun for you, you should learn how to do this stuff. But don't just go buy real estate just so you can do this. Like there are other sort of more passive ways that you can save on taxes without the work that's involved in what we're going to talk about.
Right. And you know, the when I make recommendations for what profile this show is more about, this is over 2 years of me saying, I'll help everybody. I don't care if you make 50 grand a year or you make, 5 million a year, right? And what I found is that not only do people of this profile have the most success, they're also the ones who have kind of heard a little bit about what we're going to talk
Yeah.
about, and they're already trying to figure out how to incorporate a plan, and they're taking in all the data, and some of the noise that they're hearing could distract them or kind of just distort the plan. And when people fall outside this category, once in a while someone might take advantage of some of this stuff, but the success rate is just much less, at least for our area.
Yep.
So I've done this enough. I have a long enough period of experience with clients to know that like the profile that we're outlining probably represents at least about 80 to 90% of everyone who's going to use these strategies in our region. And when I say region, I would say like the West Coast,
Yeah,
right?
I would agree.
From Washington down to California. So Typically, you should have a household income of around 300,000 or higher. This does a couple of things. A, it means you probably have enough income to do a value add deal because value add deals aren't just they don't just need capital. As Chris is learning from this project we're working on, when you remodel properties, you don't get rent on the spaces you're remodeling. So you got to cover payments. So you need to
Yep.
have enough income to be able to service the payments and enough income to at least save up your initial first capital to be able to invest. And the other piece is that 300 plus thousand is kind of this range where you're starting to care about tax savings also because you're starting to get really dinged heavily for the income bracket you're in. So it kind of hits all points. Is it enough income that you have capital to invest? Is it high enough income that you're getting killed in tax that you care about the tax savings, right? And is your income high enough that if you need to service a value add deal while you're value adding it, you have the income to help service it, right? Just
Yep.
cut back your expense a little bit a month.
I,
And
I will
so
say
it,
too, real quick, if you
mhm,
are if you are making this much money and you are a W-2 earner, this is a great strategy to consider because you just have so many fewer options if you're a W-2 earner.
that's
Like
correct.
it, and it really works. It's something that you can actually do. It's going to take a little bit of time, but um, man, it can be huge. And it's
Yes,
really, really hard to reduce that W-2 income.
it
Really hard.
is.
Yep.
So my own situation mirrors many of my clients. So for my clients who are W-2, my employment at Cross Country Mortgage is W-2. As a mortgage banker who's eligible of doing government insured loans, you have to be a W-2 employee. So all the income I make as a branch manager, originating loans, running this branch, is all W-2 income. And the IRS does not consider mortgage origination and mortgage banking a real estate activity to count towards hours towards real estate activity. So, historically, over the last 15, 20 years, like a bad year would be 300, 400 grand. A good year would be like $2 million, probably average right around 800 to $1 million of W-2 income a year combined with me and my wife out of the branch. This is pretty much the top W-2 tax bracket where you pay the highest tax rate on your W-2, and you end up you always end up maxing out paying your Social Security, Medicare, and they end up always kind of hitting you up for some of that Medicare, Social Security, or that Medicare surplus. After
Yep.
you max it out, if you go over a certain number, they start taking even more, right?
Sure.
So we're in that range, right, and have been for over a decade. And I see, and even though I'm not a software engineer, many of my clients who are software engineers, even though the jobs are very different, they mirror the similar problem. W-2 income, they get salaries plus stock bonuses. They're W-2 on all that income. W-2 income is very hard to offset, right? Highest tax bracket. They're looking for tax savings. So a good profile for this is going to be a $300,000 income earner, which is kind of basically, I think another good like kind of earmark to say, yeah, this is probably something you should do, even though it's not related to it. There's that classification of investors that if you want to sell like a certain kind of investment to certain investors, that's not like I can't remember what they
Qualified
call it with the
investor
SEC.
status.
Yeah, but you have to be accredited, right?
Mm-hmm.
Accredited investors are people who make like 350,000 annual income or has over $1 million in assets. I
Yep.
think that minimum criteria for being a accredited investor is a good earmark for like then you should care about this also, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first piece, right? So if you have that kind of an income, you should care about it. Now, the whole concept to this is that normally when you have rental properties, right? Let's just forget the whole tax savings things we're getting to. Let's just say you have like four rentals. You have your rental income, you have your normal expenses like your mortgage interest, the taxes, the insurance, maybe some shared utilities, cleaning, whatever. The extra expense that usually helps wipe out your rental income on that property is depreciation. So residential real estate is depreciated at 27 years and commercial is 37 years, 37
Yep.
and a half years, I think is what they do.
And
And
let's talk about real quick. Define these terms.
mhm,
Depreciation is just sort of like the expected useful life of a thing. Okay,
right,
so a house is 27 and a half years. Your washer and dryer is, I think, is like 2 years. For example, a car, there's depreciation schedules for all of this stuff. A car is 5 years generally. So um, that's what we're talking about is sort of the useful life of this thing. And that's it. Keep going.
yep, yep. And so what they'll say is you can't depreciate the land. It's just the improvements, which is basically your buildings. So whatever the value of your building is the year that you bought it, you kind of just, let's say it's a residential, you divide it by 27.5 years, and that's how much you get to claim each year you have it. And you can use it to offset your rental income. If it's just a normal rental and it's passive, you can't, if the losses, including depreciation, exceed the rental income and it shows it's a loss at the bottom, you cannot use that to offset your active income. If you're a
Right.
W-2 employee,
Let's use
unless
more
you're under,
terms. Let's use more terms real quick.
okay,
There's two types of rentals. There's long term and there's short term.
right.
Right now we are talking about long term rental, which is I think just the average stay of over 7 days. Is that how it's defined right now? I'll have to look it
Anything
up.
over 7 days is not considered short term. Yeah.
Right.
Um, but so
Yeah, you
yeah,
have to meet
basic,
you have to meet the criteria for a short term or it's a long term rental. What we're talking
right.
about right now, as far as like not offsetting your W-2 income, is if it's a long term rental. Just and for most things, this is going to be like just your average. You rent a house for somebody, they sign a year lease,
Yeah.
long term
Like our
rental.
fourplex, they have two tenants in it already, right? They're just
Correct.
renting.
Yep. Exactly.
So if you have just regular rentals, if there's a loss, the only there's only a couple different ways you can use that loss against your active income. You either A, have to be a real estate professional, and that is one of the hacks that we're going to cover today, or you're under a certain income level where the IRS lets you do it, which you've already identified is probably not who we're going to be helping at the moment because it's too hard to buy rentals at that income level. So, so a real estate professional would be like, for instance, our friend John. He can buy rentals, like his condo. He's in this deal with us. He could just continue to do long term rent, and if there's depreciation losses, and if he does and he accelerates those depreciation losses, he can still claim that against his active income because he's classified as a real estate professional. He's a real estate broker. He owns a real estate company. He has staff, and he does real estate activity all day long. So that's one of the ways you can take depreciation against your income is that you're considered a real estate professional.
And let
So
me just say this: if you have a job, you're basically not going to qualify as a real estate professional. I would, you can try it. I would use one of the other alternative methods that we're going to talk about.
yeah, but I do want to talk about how my hack I did in this, and then I want to get to the
Yep.
STR part because I am seeing more people do this hack that I did.
Here,
So,
here, real quick, before you get to the hack, I have a Gemini set up. I'm,
okay,
I'm just going to hit these criteria so we can talk about what they specifically are, and then you can talk about how you are working with these criteria. Okay.
sure,
So for the real estate professional, you have to satisfy both of these tests every single year that you want to convert this depreciation or these losses into active losses, essentially. Number one is the 750-hour test. You must perform more than 750 hours of services during the year in real property trades or businesses. Okay, so you just Google that. And you have to materially participate in those things, which is another definition that Google that. Okay. And then there's the more than half test. More than 50% of your total working hours for the year must be spent in those real property trades or businesses.
yep,
Okay. That's what makes it hard is the 50% test. Okay. So
yes,
there's a note under here that says if you have a full-time W-2 job, which is 2,000 hours a year, you would need to work at least 2,001 hours in real estate to pass the more than half test.
yep,
Actually, it would be, I think it'd be 1,001. Although you add all the hours up, it'd be 4,000. This is why
yep,
it's very difficult for full-time employees in other industries to claim the stats. Okay,
yep,
so
yep,
that's
yep.
the test.
That's the test, and that's why, for instance, our friend John can do it because he's already doing real estate activities as a regular job.
Correct. He is
That's
in a real property trade or business.
yes, absolutely. So I'm going to teach you the first hack, and I first heard someone in my industry do this with their spouse, and he couldn't explain the strategy like I am because he didn't understand all the pieces. They just know that if someone told them to do it, and they kind of just did it, and they saw all these tax savings, they understand why.
Yep.
Okay, so one of the hacks is this: if you're married, filed jointly. If one person is predominantly that really high W-2 income, and the other person can morph their employment to be a real estate professional, then if you file jointly, the losses from the jointly held real estate can offset both of your W-2 incomes.
Correct.
So and I'm seeing a lot of my clients do this. Let's say they have a combined household income of like, let's say 600,000. It's not uncommon that it's like one person making 475 and one person making 125. And then they have this active question. It was like, well, if we build up a rental portfolio that's making us 50 grand a year, we actually would make more money if spouse number two, who makes 125, just quits their job and makes their full-time job managing those properties for the 50,000 income. And why would that be, even though they lost 75,000 income? Because now they get to be a real estate professional, and then they could accelerate the depreciation of those rentals and offset the
Right.
income of 525,000. And it might net them actually more income for less work. So that's what me and my wife did. She had some dessert shops. She got to the point where those were more passive. She still is a manager at cross country, but she's a part-time employee. She only comes in like once a week. She maybe works like 16 hours a week. Her full-time job is managing our 30 rentals, and 18 of them are short-term rentals. So we have a long list of properties, and her main job is doing that. She spends way more than 750 hours and way more than 50% of her working week year just setting up furniture in these properties,
Yeah.
right?
This is real quick though. This is important. If you qualify as a real estate professional, it doesn't matter if you have long term or short term. You get to take it all off your active
That's
income.
right. That's
That's why
right.
it's such a hard test to meet, because other people will be taking advantage of this. They already do, I'm sure, in some ways, but this can be huge if you have a big portfolio. I mean, you have a pretty big portfolio, but if you have, let's say you have a $10 million real estate portfolio, if you're taking 27, if you're taking just your depreciation on that is $363,000 a year.
That's not even accelerated.
That's not direct. That's correct. That's not even accelerated. That's just if you take 10 million and divide it by 27.5, that's what you get to take every year. And the cool thing about real estate is the way that you get to leverage your money out of pocket versus sort of what you get. Because you may have $10 million and that might be mortgaged with $7 million, for example. Let's say you put, let's say you put 20% down on a $10 million portfolio. You really have 2 million of equity. 8 million is mortgage, but you get to take the depreciation on the full 10. And you get to write off the interest, by the way. You get to do a whole bunch of other stuff with it, but it can be pretty significant if you can get that real estate professional status, even on your long-term rentals. So real estate professional status is like where you want to be in a perfect world if you have a lot of real estate, whether it's long or short term, because you get to write it all off,
Yep.
against everything, which is great.
We have about 30 doors. You don't need that many, but I think if you got anywhere near like 6 to 8 and a good portion of them are short-term rentals, like at least about half of them, it would be pretty easy to meet that 750 hours a year requirement.
Yeah,
Because, just communicating with your guests counts.
for sure.
You can,
Oh, yes.
you know,
Traveling to your properties. I mean, it adds up. It adds
yeah,
up.
it does add up. You can get those, and one of my cool hacks is that we have those, the softwares that you use, like monitor how long your kids are on apps. We
Yep.
use that, but we use it so we can log how much time we spend on Airbnb messaging with
Yep.
guests.
That's what
And
Brooke
then
does too,
yep,
because there's a different hourly test that we'll talk about. That is the way that we're doing it, which is not the same as you are.
yep. So obviously, if you're already a real estate professional, great. The hack is that whether you are and are married to a high W-2 income earner, or maybe you already have two W-2 earners, but one of them makes a lot more than the other, and the one who makes a little bit less decides to be the quote unquote real estate professional and quit their job, you might be working more hours and not net more income. And so this option I actually see a lot of people doing. This is the very common thing I'll see. I'll see a family, maybe two people, they both work in tech, one makes more money than the other, and they want to build their portfolio just big enough where when the person who makes a lower income quits their job and becomes a full-time property manager of their properties, that their net income doesn't really change. And then they can work overall, like, because then that becomes their only job. Now they got to just make the 750 hours, but 750 hours is still a lot less than 2,000. And so they're thinking, if I work
Yeah.
about 1,000 hours a year managing my properties, that's low enough that I can still kind of also be at home and watch the kids. And so that becomes like their plan on how they're going to kind of grow the family. Hey, we're
Yep.
both making like together $500,000, but you're making four, I'm making 100. Let's get some rentals. And then that way, if we want to raise a family when they're young, I can quit my job, manage those rentals, and we net about the same,
Yep.
right?
And if you take 750 and divide it by 50, which is like 50 weeks in a year is what most people use, it's 15 hours a week. So that's really doable, if you think about it, because you could do that all in, You can do that in 2 days a week if you really just wanted to focus on it and then just watch your kids or do everything else the rest of the time. So
Right.
it is a
Right.
standard to meet if you have enough work to do it, you know.
So that's the big hack is that if you look at the requirements for a real estate professional, they are very hard. But if you think about your household unit, it becomes much easier if you plan for it. If, I mean, your incomes are split right down the middle, it's a tougher thing, right? But if one person's income is substantially higher than the other, Diane was making pretty good money for those dirt shops, but she was never getting close to me. And so it just made sense to be like, look, those are taking a lot of hours, a lot of stress. Let's close those down. Let's sell them. And then we'll grow a real estate portfolio, take over running that. Now I still get to make all the active income I make here. She owns a property management company. She manages our rentals. That's her full-time job. You know, clearly passes the test, right?
Yep.
6 pages of Schedule E, and she owns a property management company. It's hard to not call her a real estate professional, right?
100%.
So that's the first big hack. The second one is the one that Chris was jumping to because that's the one he's using, which is even if you're not a real estate professional, if one of your rentals is a short-term rental that you actively participate manage, then you can't depreciate all of your rentals, but that particular property, the depreciation, you can offset your income. So if you're listening closely to what we're saying, the first thing you want to do is position yourself where you can count depreciation against your active income. It's going to either be the real estate professional designation or it's an actively managed short-term rental.
Yeah, it's the
Once
material participation rule is what you're looking for. So if you're just listening to this and you want to Google it, that's what it's called. Okay.
Yep. So once you cross that line where you go, great, either on this one STR I'm managing or my whole real estate portfolio and real estate professional, I could take active losses. That then triggers the next tactic, which is with the accelerated depreciation. So the normal depreciation schedule is the 27 or 37 and a half years
Yeah.
for commercial or residential real estate.
Let's talk. Hold on.
And
Let's talk about this material participation real quick
okay,
because there's specific things that you have to do. Okay. Number one, you have to work on your. So let me back up real quick. The reason we're doing this strategy, the material participation strategy, is really two reasons that don't apply to Keen, not King, Keen. Number one, we don't have a gigantic real estate portfolio. Okay, it's not. I don't know. It's fine, but it's not Keen's size. The other thing too is we probably at this point would have a hard time getting 750 hours in a year because again, we're just not in the industry like John is, which easily gets you there. And then we don't have enough properties to like sort of get us there. So we don't really qualify for that. And it doesn't really move the needle for us in a way that it should. We also don't have enough like real estate projects going on at one time for it to also sort of really move the needle. We kind of in our grand vision want to do maybe one property a year, which makes employing this strategy really great because every year we can sort of reload what I'm about to talk to you about and just keep doing it. Okay. So to meet the material participation standard, you have to work at least 100 hours on a specific property to be able to materially participate in that property. The other standard, and by the way, you can really get there pretty easily when it comes to a short-term rental in particular, because like furnishing it counts, setting up the platforms counts, guest communication counts, like Keen was saying, pricing strategies count. All of these things that you're going to be working on, they all count. Okay, so to get to 100 hours in a year is pretty easy. It's only 8.3 hours per month. Okay, so it's just like really easy to get to. The drive time to the property matters. So every time you drive there to set furniture up, that matters. Every time you build a piece of furniture, that matters. Like all of that stuff counts.
it's driving to the property to see the progress from your contractors.
That's right. Yep, it all counts.
Going to the store
So
to pick out finishes.
that's right. Basically all of it counts. So when you're setting these things up, you're going to spend a lot of time on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one, those 100 hours. You have to get to 100 hours. The second criteria is no one else can have worked on the property more than you. Okay. Where does this really come into play? Like cleaners is probably going to be the number one person that can sort of like beat you in time. The other nice thing though about starting an Airbnb is you're going to have a pretty big jump on your people just by when you're in the setting up process, particularly like we are if you're doing renovations and things like that, because you just spend a lot more time on it. So 100 hours and no one has spent more time on it than you. Okay. Then it qualifies for this active depreciation, which we're going to talk about now.
Yep. So the first thing is using one of the methods that we just said. Become a real estate professional, maybe you're already in industry, maybe make a modification to in a married housing unit that one person can become one. That's what I did. Or have a actively material participation personally managed short-term rental that you're doing yourself. So if you get one of those are the three most common buckets that we see people having success in this range. The last two fits like the general community who's not working in the real estate field, right?
Correct. Yep.
So once you cross that line, you can say, okay, great. Now either the losses on this property or my whole portfolio can now be used to offset my active income. Then comes the next secret sauce. Part of the 2016 tax bill was that it was the first time they gave people in real estate the ability to change the depreciation schedule away from that 27 and a half year schedule or 37 and a half year if it's commercial. And it's through a process they call a cost segregation study. This is where they basically segregate the building. Chris was already touching on it, where he said like, hey, the washer dryer might have a 2-year life on it. The hot water tank might have like 8-year life on it. They segregate the property and depreciate them at the rate of what that useful life is for that portion, instead of all of it being 27 and a half years, which then gives you this accelerated amount of depreciation. It means you can't claim it for 27 years. It might shorten it, to like half, but it means the amount you get per year is substantially more. And then there's also this bonus depreciation, which they'll let you take a large portion of it the first year.
That's right.
And that's where you start to get these massive losses front loaded to offset your income. But none of those depreciation, none of this cost seg stuff even matters if you didn't do the first two things that we said. Either be a real estate professional or do it on a short-term rental that you're personally material participating and managing and do more work than anyone else. You need to make sure you're one of these two first. Then the cost seg thing matters. It's not one, then you don't want to start with doing cost seg and figure out how to do the other, because now you're just accelerating depreciation and you can only use it to offset the income on that property.
Right.
Or your other rentals.
That's right. You need to make this sort of like this investment, an active investment versus a passive investment. That's key number one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Then you do this cost seg study, which is basically you have to hire somebody. They're going to go to your property and walk around and basically go, okay, you got a dishwasher, like you said, you got a water heater, you've got carpet, you've got I don't know, counters. I don't know, you'll know more about what they look at specifically than me. Light fixtures. They'll basically just go through, and it's a segregation study because they segregate each of the sort of like the different things that are on that property that you can depreciate, and they figure out what that schedule's like. Right?
That's right. That's right. And
so they make this big old list and they show you what the schedules are for like literally each of those things.
Yep. It really that's the whole recipe, right? Like you buy and with what we just shared, you can come up with all these cool strategies. If you go back to the episode where I talked about my grandiose real estate plan for financial freedom, it's built into that, right? I only want to own the properties for about 10 to 15 years until they all double in value. Well, the depreciation schedule is 27 years. By doing cost segregations on them, I can speed up the depreciation and use all the depreciation during the time I'm holding it for the doubled values. It won't take 27 years for it to double in value. It'll probably take about half that, right? So then I hold it for that period of time. I use up all the depreciation. And if you listen to the rest of the episode, you can hear about the tactic I use of how to move on from the properties, move into cash flow positions, and not have to take a tax hit. All legal, all by the tax code.
Yep. Let's talk about one thing real quick on this depreciation acceleration. So you have to think there's sort of like two. So you in the past, you could use this accelerated depreciation to fast track your depreciation. Just as a general rule, people would do this because it takes your 27.5 and it makes a lot of the things in your building a shorter span, so you can depreciate it earlier. In I don't know.
claim more faster.
That's right. And then in
Mm-hmm.
2025, um, the new tax bill uh, sort of reignited what had been happening years before that, which is bonus depreciation. Bonus depreciation allows you to fast track all of it basically into year one, except the shell of your house. Okay, so the exterior walls and the roof, all that stuff is going to always be on a 27 and a half year depreciation schedule. This is why you have to do the cost segregation study, because you have to sort of like break down what of your value of your property is the shell and what is not. And whatever is not the shell, you'll have a big list of those things and it'll have these depreciation schedules on it, but you can just change all of those to like one and you can depreciate the whole thing right now, which is why when I talked about wanting to do this on an annual basis, at least while this bonus depreciation exists, is a sort of both a fun strategy for us and a very like tax friendly strategy, because we can take this big depreciation sort of hit, not hit, advantage every year.
Right. Now, the other hack I really want to get into is the one that you came up with, right? Because, you know, you were really like, hey, I don't want to have to manage this shit forever,
Correct.
right? But I like the tax strategy. So why don't you go, because you're not doing the real estate professional strategy, you're doing the short-term rental one, and you're using the rules in a very clever way. So why don't you go through how you're doing
Yeah.
that for your portion of the condo purchase, the condo deal
Yeah.
that we're
So for
doing?
yeah, so for this material participation, you only have to be materially participating in the year that you take the bonus depreciation, essentially. Okay. So for us, it's going to be like year one. We're going to crush all the depreciation that we can. So in year one, we are going to manage a property. If you did this every year, okay, for the first year, it's probably easy to manage one. Then you got two in year two, three. I mean, it gets pretty soon you're in the real estate professional status, right? If you're not careful. If you want to be hands off like we do, what we're going to do is we're just going to manage the one for the year until we get to our number for sure. Then we will hand it off to a property management company. After that, it will take that short-term rental out of the active sort of status for the next year, but that'll be okay because we'll have the new property that we're pumping in, that we're sort of starting the strategy all over with. So we get to sort of have our cake and eat it too, because we
Yeah,
don't need to
even
be actively managing these forever.
I mean, the what I heard on it too was this is like my strategy was really meant to like shelter my active income for many, many years. I have more properties than the amount of years I want to offset. You're doing a different strategy where it's like, hey, I'm going to buy something this year. And the one that you're doing is a value add deal. There'll be lots of equity when you're done. You leave 100 grand in it, but you're going to have, you know, 350 to 400 something thousand in equity for the 100 that you spend in it.
Yep.
But because you're going to manage your rental yourself that first year and then do the bonus depreciation claim so much upfront, you're probably going to get a lot of, if not all of your down payment money back, which basically meant that you kind of got that property for free.
Sure. I
And
mean, yeah, I'll be able to save. I mean, let's conservatively 40K in taxes.
yep,
Like,
there's
yeah,
40% of your down payment in it,
yep, yeah,
And so that's it's a really interesting. It's not going to give you the most savings. My strategy is designed to give you the most savings, but it takes the most planning and life changes around it. You have to know that, like what I did on paper looks better, but in practice, there's a moment where we are doing all this active management of our rentals, still doing all of our active jobs, pulling our hair out, and just trying
yeah,
to build this up big enough. It's like we can't quit these two jobs, so we're going to do these two plus do this third job, which together is like another full-time job we're splitting between the two of us. And we're not taking any of the tax savings yet. We're just trying to build this big enough where it's so big we can finally just get rid of one of these jobs, and then this what we created replaces one of them. So in
correct.
that build-up phase, it's really stressful. There was definitely moments where Diane wanted to throw her shoes at me because she was like, I work all day and then I have to work at the property all day and I don't have any time off. And we had like 2 years of doing this like massive build out of converting a lot of our properties to short-term rentals. And she's like, I don't want to work this hard. I'm like, it's a short burn for a long gain. And
Yep.
and it was like last year was the first year where we started to reap the benefits of it. Okay, sell your dessert shops. We're going to travel more. Your whole job is dealing with this. She maybe
Yeah.
spends an hour or two a week doing some bookkeeping work for the branch. The rest of it's all on the properties. We do double the travel we used to. The tax savings are there. Everything's like we set up the system, but we had to really pay the price. Your
Yeah.
method's like, maybe I don't want to pay the price as much and, just kill myself for a couple of years. I get a piece of it because I'll self-manage it just the first year and then I'll hand it off to someone else and now I'm gonna mess with it anymore. And then I can
Right.
just repeat acquisitions and get tax savings as they come
The,
along.
that's right. The pain's not
Yeah.
as big for me, right? I don't
Right.
have $1 million W-2. You know what my W-2 is? It's like 85K. Okay. So like,
Yeah, but you own the company.
but I get to, well, but I, because I own these businesses though, I get to run, I have a lot
Right.
of other options. I can run other stuff through, and there are other places that I can invest money and get other tax benefits. There are other things that I can do. They don't probably move the needle as much as this does. It's not as big, but you know, I got other options, because I'm not trying to reduce this W-2 income.
Well, the other part of it, I mean, this is a huge part of it, right? Diane's main job is now a real estate job,
Yeah.
right? Like let's just talk real talk. You probably don't want a real estate job to be your full-time job, and neither does Brooke, right?
No, no.
So,
Look,
I
I'm
mean
lazy. Do you know what I'm
that
saying?
already for me it's different. I'm in the mortgage field. We're talking real estate all day long anyway. So to me it's like an extension of what I'm already doing. So,
Yes. I,
you
I will
know,
also say this too, like the whole everything about these deals and everything that you do is something that you really, really love doing.
yeah.
You know, like it is like, yeah, you're making a lot of money from it, but you really like it, you
There's
know?
stuff I've seen a lot of ways to make money in this field where I'm like, "Oh man, that makes a lot of money." And I'm like, "I don't want to do that."
Correct. That's
I
right.
remember the first time because, and this business is a little more saturated now, but I remember the first time I started doing loans for adult family home operators. And to get them qualified, you have to understand the business and you also have to understand the tax code related to the business.
Yep.
Not to get too far off on it, but there's this tax code that says if the adult family home that you operate, you also live in, and the people that you take care of are Medicaid, you don't pay income tax on it. So on the tax return, when you look at the bottom net, it doesn't look like very much income. But what's happening is that there's this huge expense, like there's an expense equal to the income of all of your Medicaid tenants because it's called the Section 131 tax code. So when regular mortgage makers looked at it, they didn't understand how these people could qualify for it. But there's literally an expense on the tax return that is equal to their income, and it's not really an expense. It's put there to offset the taxes by the way the IRS wants you to do it. It's just non taxable. So like these guys, if it's a large enough home, they're making like $250,000, $300,000, and all of it's tax free. I'm like, wow, that's I could see why someone who used to be a nurse who then turns into this would say this is a better job. But now I make
But
more
you
than
got to
that.
take care of, you have to take care of old people.
I don't want to change a
That's
bedpan,
right.
and I don't
Exactly.
want to have to look for a new customer because someone died in my house,
Right.
right? I'm
Look,
grateful for
yes.
the people who run those businesses because our elderly all need it, but that ain't me. I don't want to do that
Well,
shit. Like
yes.
you can add two zeros to it, and I still wouldn't want to do it.
That's right.
Um,
And to go super high level real quick, this is why the tax code exists. Like the actual tax rates is a very, very small part of what the tax code is. The rest of it is ways that you can sort of save money on taxes. The reason that those things exist is because they want to entice people to take certain activities. We want people to have old folks' homes, you know?
yeah,
We
and
want
and
people to invest in real estate and update it and sort of build the infrastructure. We want people to start and run businesses that employ other people. Like that's why you get these tax breaks is to incentivize this type of behavior.
right, grows GDP.
Yeah, but you pick what you like. You pick what you want, and then
Yeah,
you do that. I'll
yep,
agree 100%. Because even the same, the reason that you guys get a big tax break is because it's actually quite a bit of work. Like it's not
We spend a
easy
shit
to
ton of
get.
time on,
That's
we spend a
right.
shit ton of the properties.
Yeah, it's not easy to get the real estate professional status on purpose because you get a big reward for that, but it's a lot of work, you know?
Yeah. I don't know if we on one of our episodes we talked about me injuring my lower back. That didn't happen at the gym. That happened with me preparing a bed on one of my short-term rentals.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
like
Totally.
this is real shit that we're doing, you know? And some people are like, I don't want to ever have to do that. And I get it. I get it. When I first came into this, I thought I might feel the same way, but you know, the truth is that mortgage lending is kind of like the healthcare version of the finance industry. What I mean by that is the healthcare industry is really profitable because when people need it, they need it, but they really don't want it unless they need it. But when they need it, they'll pay anything to get it. And giving people loans is the equivalent to that. No one wants a loan. Do you want a loan? Like, let me just give you a $500,000 loan, even if it's 1% interest, right? It's like, well, then you have to pay it back. You still got to pay the 1%. Now,
Yep.
someone who's savvy might want to invest it, try to make a spread under return. But in general, you don't want a loan unless you need to. And this, what you really want is you want a property or you want to refinance. And now you're asking for the loan, right? Oh man, I really need to cash out to pay for this other thing I'm doing, or I need to buy this property because our family's growing too much. The loan is like, I need it. Who's going to give it to me, right?
Yeah.
And it's healthcare is very much the same way. And the reason I bring that up is because I love trying to give like hospitality and service, but giving really good service and giving people loans is like a great experience at an oral surgeon. Like if you have a great experience at an oral surgeon, you this is what you say about your great oral surgeon. Yes, it sucked, but I expected it to suck so much more. And my guy was great because it only sucked a little,
Yep.
right?
Totally.
And I mean, at the end of the day, it's a very profitable business. When people say they're going to pay you to do something that sucks because they need it, then you know you get paid. You're at least you're out of the realm of things that people feel like they don't really need, right? You
Yeah.
know, that's why it pays so well. That's one of the reasons why healthcare makes so much money. But there's a part of me that says I really want to give people hospitality where people say, "Wow, that was a great experience," and the way they describe it isn't how it was a lack of how bad it was. And so that's one of the reasons why I've enjoyed being an Airbnb host. You know, I
Yep.
still get shitty guests that, you know, abuse it and whatever, but it's cool to sometimes see like someone needed something and go hand deliver it and they meet the owner and they're like, wow, this is great. You know,
Yeah.
bring a little gift for them or whatever, get a 5-star review. You know, it's like, hey, I get to be on the good side of the great service, like the Four Seasons or the whatever, right? In the mortgage world, you never really are that, you know, because it's like I said, it's you know, people brag about the people they get their loan from based off of making something that could have or should have been painful as painless as possible.
Yep.
So
Exactly. Same with legal
yeah,
services, by the way.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
It's very much a I don't really want to get this, but I need it.
Yep.
And if you need it, you're just going to pay for it.
Yep.
So
Definitely.
yeah,
Definitely. Okay, great. So there's one more component to this, to being able to do this accelerated depreciation, this bonus depreciation, and that is it has to be a short-term rental. Okay. If you have a long-term rental, then you can't accelerate depreciation.
unless
Okay.
you're a real estate professional.
Unless you're a real estate professional.
Okay.
So how do you get in that? That's what everybody talks about with the short-term rental loophole.
Right.
Not a loophole, by the way. It's a part of the tax code. I think people call it a loophole because they think it sounds sexy or something. But basically, the average stay of your rental has to be 7 days or less.
So you add up all
So
of your stays and then average out the average stay length, and it needs to be 7 days or less after you do that average.
correct. Yes. If you meet that standard, then you can accelerate the depreciation and you can then take the bonus depreciation. And, you know, assuming you meet that other test that we talked about, either the real estate professional or material participation, then you can activate that against your active income, which is really nice.
Yep.
Really, really nice. So that's what we're doing, both of
Yep.
us. And pretty
Yep.
much the other two people that are, I think, well, I don't know what Tom's doing necessarily, if he's thought about that, but John is already a real estate
He
professional,
definitely
so it's easy.
has. Yeah, John's easy because he's already an agent. My wife is a real estate professional, so I get to do it. That
Right.
property I'm owning jointly with my brother though. So if he wants to participate, but do the material participation on that unit to make it so he meets the hours, that's up to him because we have to split it. Um, I believe Tom is undecided. We've had the discussion. I think
Yeah.
he's intrigued by what you're doing, and I don't think he's decided yet. I think he
He
just,
should. Yeah. What he should do is just start tracking his time. He might be surprised how quickly he gets to 100 hours
mhm.
because, we go out there once a week to check on the property. It's an hour, it's a half an hour there and half an hour back, no matter what.
Yep.
So that's going to be, I don't know, 25, 30 hours by the time we're done, and
Yeah.
as we get closer, and then when we furnish it and everything, we're going to be going out there way more than that. I'm guessing, so, and we'll be spending a lot of time there because, well, at least for me, I'm probably kind of like you when it comes to this stuff. I really want to provide a good experience. But for me, that means like systems, processes,
Yeah.
like having a good handbook, having things labeled correctly, looking at the house and thinking like, how can I just make this easy for people to figure out,
Yeah.
and that takes time. It takes time to
It
do
does
that
take
kind of
time.
stuff. So, getting to 100 hours for us can be going to be easy, I think.
Yeah, we can
And
do a whole show
then
on just that stuff.
yeah, well, we probably should as we get closer, because
Yeah.
we're not working a lot on that yet because we're still, you know, probably 2 months away at least, right, from being done with this thing. They're moving pretty fast, and what's nice is the units are, although they're 2 bedrooms, they're still condos. Like we're not doing a full house, which
Right.
takes longer. So things are moving, but we're not there yet. We're not furnishing it yet or anything like that. So,
Right.
um, but yeah, but if you want to save on taxes, you gotta plan in advance. You
Right.
gotta think about it in advance. No matter what strategy that you want, learn about it.
There's a million different ways to try to figure out how to make one of these requirements. What I really want the show to be about is watching a lot of people have success with certain strategies, which are the ones I always see. It's you self-manage your short-term rental,
Yep.
or you already are in the real estate industry and you take advantage of it, or three, you find a way to make one of a married spouse couple to become a real estate professional to get the benefit. And
Yep.
a lot of my clients they'll come to me and they're like, "Oh, well, my wife doesn't work at all. She doesn't do any of the real estate stuff either." I'm like, "Well, can we at least get her to do the set?" Like, I think of a specific client who's like, you know, he's always he's a pilot. And he makes a full annual income off of it, but he technically flies less than 750 hours a year. So his hack was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I'm going to go over 750 hours doing real estate stuff, and I can prove I'm only flying 700 hours a year. So I'm still under 2,000, but it's still more than 50%." I'm like, "Robert, you're killing yourself. Like, you got enough properties, just have your wife do it. As
Right.
long as she gets to 750, you're good,
Yeah.
right?"
Because the problem is you still got to put that extra 750 in.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have a job, even if you're only, it's still a lot, like
Yep.
to double that up, right? Then you're working up. There's a reason pilots only work that much,
Yep.
It's a hard job,
It is a hard
right?
job.
Yeah.
And so that strategy of using the spouse has been a really successful one. And
Yep.
it then also eliminates the average stay requirement. On our we have 18 properties that we Airbnb, but they actually only are Airbnb'd on short-term stays for about half of the year because we blend it.
Yeah.
We push people to do midterm stays in the cold season, and we'll use short-term stays in between them, and then it's short-term for the summer. We do that almost all of them. So our average stays probably are over 7 days. But
Yep.
when you're running 18 of them, you're going to get way over 750 hours, right? And that's my wife's
Correct.
full-time job. So our average stay doesn't matter. So
Right.
that's a strategy that we used. But I've
Yep.
seen this, I've heard a lot of people try to get creative how to do them, but almost every time I hear people say I'm successfully doing it and it's working, it's either what you're doing, what I'm doing, or John's situation. Those are the
Yeah.
three that 90+% of the people I see fall in one of those buckets. It's rarely
Yeah.
rare that they're not structured in one of those three setups. From
That's
at
right.
least all the people I've met that are doing it, which at this
Yeah.
point has been quite a few.
Yep.
Majority of my clients are. So
Yeah. And it's like also, it's just helpful to take some time to think about these rules. For example, like I'm not even sure how this math works, But, we technically might be able to do a midterm rental if we have enough short-term stays. Because if you have like a bunch of threes and then you add in 130, the average of all those together might still be under 7.
Yeah.
But what you don't want to do is not do that first. Have some midterm rentals show up, and then at the end of the year, you look at the math and you're like, oh shit, we're at
Right.
8 days or something.
Right.
And then you're like, you can't. What do you can't get that back?
Right.
You know, you can't get that back. So make sure you know the rules, and again, just work inside the rules because they're not hard rules. Like you could just make a list of them. It's not rocket science if you just take a little bit of time to figure it out.
Yeah.
Just be curious.
There's a whole list of things that go with any one of those categories, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, what does it take to be a successful real estate agent? That's a whole different episode.
Yep.
Being a real estate professional, creating that from being a property manager, I can give a couple of quick tips. If a handful are short-term rentals or a midterm short-term blend, then obviously the communication is an easy way to get a lot of those hours in. So even if we're not setting up new Airbnbs, getting my wife to get to 750 hours a year is quite easy when we're messaging on 18 different properties, people
Right.
checking in, checking out, and individual requests. No, look, there's spiders here, and blah 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 blah. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
Like we're we have an app that helps minimize the time we're doing it, but we still got to be there's still manual work in it, right? It's actually quite interesting how as I'm saying this out loud, I realize that like as AI starts to take over more of the work for us, you know, even with our portfolio, we might have to be creative on how to keep Diane at 750 hours. Right now, it's not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
She's easily, hitting about 2,000 hours a year now. But
Yeah.
you know, it might get to the point where the AI agents are like doing so much of the guest communication without our help that we have to be more active in doing the remodel work or whatever. But we haven't been logging all the individual spaces that we spend the time as closely yet because we do so much in so many different places.
They're easily
It's a
there.
full time job.
Yep.
It's her full time job, so she does it every day. So it's easy to
Yep.
see. We'll worry about that when we get there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
Perfect.
All right. We're good. I think we're there.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
we're at an hour. So it's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That was fun. Yep. So this is great stuff. Um, any closing thoughts?
Yeah. The other part is whatever plan you're deciding to do, make sure your tax professional is aware upfront. And more importantly than that, make sure you have the right tax professional to do it. If you get any hesitation from the person you're talking to, that's a sign that they don't actually know
Yeah.
and they're going to try to backfill it. It's probably better just to work with someone who makes it an active part of their business. That's
Yep.
a recommendation of mine. Try to work with someone that they do it quite frequently, and it's a normal thing in their practice to do this for people. That way, they can help you navigate through the rules and make sure that you do it properly.
Agree. Great advice. Okay, cool. Let's wrap it up.
All
That is
righty.
it for today. This is the Business Barbershop Podcast. I am Chris.
I am Keen.
Have a great day.
See you guys later.
See ya.